Hey folks, Labruski here, back in a new off the cuff. I hope everyone is doing well and had a good week since I last talked with you. TikTok, the ban lasted only a few hours, so it's funny. After that, my last off the cuff got uploaded, literally like an hour or two after TikTok was unbanned. So that video did not age well, to say the least. But so it goes, I guess. But before we dive into today's topic, if you could please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. It helps out the channel a whole bunch. And for today's topic, I wanted to come on and talk about something that has been very relevant in my life and has been kind of a constant in my life forever, and there's been points where it's been better and points where it's been bad. Um, and that's anxiety and panic attacks. Now, I will say the panic attacks that I've been having have only really started within the last year or so. But anxiety has been kind of a constant throughout my life, in some form or the other. Um, and which I think a healthy amount of anxiety is, well, like I said, healthy, right? There is the fight or flight response, right? That is anxiety essentially. Um, so everyone has anxieties and whatnot. But my anxiety as of late, what has been better, within the last couple weeks. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the changes I've made to my routines to help with my anxiety and panic attacks. I haven't really had a panic attack. Well, I had a small one like last week. But before that, it was, a few weeks since I last had a panic attack, really. So I've been making pretty good progress with my mental health, and I've touched upon my mental health and other off the cuffs, but I haven't really gone into more detail on it. So that's what I want to do for today's video, is talk a little bit about that. And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who can resonate with my own experience with anxiety and panic attacks. Um, and I want to maybe try to offer a little guidance when it comes to your mental health journey, if you will, because it can be a very daunting thing to even start. Some of the things that just feels like a drop in the bucket, right? Where you're not going to make much progress in a short amount of time, which a lot of that's true, but the long term effects are so important, right? And so effective that doing daily things each day um, is really the key to living a somewhat anxiety-free life. You're always going to have anxieties and bad days and whatnot. That's unavoidable, but you can definitely kind of get it under control and maintain it. Um, yeah. So I guess to give you a little background with my experience with anxiety, um, I've always struggled with it, especially like in my teenage years. It was looking back, I didn't realize it was anxiety, but looking back, I can kind of recognize some of the symptoms and whatnot. Um, and at that time, it was, I didn't know what to do about it. And don't get me wrong, it's not like every day was horrible or that, like nothing like that. But I would say maybe I dealt with more anxiety than the average teenager at that time, right? But don't get me wrong, I have a great life and whatnot. It's not to the point where it's like crippling anxiety, if you will. So I don't want any like sympathy or pity or anything like that. I just kind of want to talk a little bit about my own experience. And in I'm sorry, in college, my anxiety first semester got pretty bad, which I think is normal across the board. Especially when you go to a college away from home, it's your first time kind of out in the real world, right? That those anxiety is common, to say the least. And I started seeing a counselor on school to help with some of my anxieties. And it did a little bit, but after my first semester in college, I moved back home and went to a community college and just commuted. And honestly, my anxiety was not bad around that time. Um, and then I went back to actually the same school I transferred out of freshman year. I went back junior year, and it was pretty much in the height of COVID. It was 2020, the fall of 2020. And my anxiety started to get worse again. and I decided to talk with my daily, or I'm sorry, my primary care, doctor, whatever. And he prescribed me Xanax and Lexapro. And looking back, I should not have been taking Xanax. That's kind of a whole nother story, I guess, if you will, with prescription drugs and whatnot. But Xanax, it can be a pretty intense and addictive drug. Luckily, I avoided, for the most part, some of the traps when taking Xanax. But maybe I'll talk about that in a separate video at some point. But I'm still on Lexapro. I bounced around between some other SSRIs, antidepressant, anti-anxieties. But now I'm just on Lexapro, and that 20 milligrams, that seems to help. But as of late, within the last year or so, year and a half, 2 years, my anxiety has just gotten worse and worse and worse to the point where I am having panic attacks. And it is affecting my daily life, or it was rather. Now, not so much. Um, and, I started seeing a therapist, and, for a long time, seeing my therapist, it was really just kind of me just talking about some of the issues or problems in my life, and not really trying to address anxiety. And, a lot of that's kind of my fault where I wasn't fully committed. I was very resisting treatment, if you will. And I think that's normal as well from what I've read and heard, where you do kind of hold on to some of the anxiety and whatnot, because it's what you know. It's what you know and what you're used to. So it can be hard to kind of treat that, right, and start to move past it. But as of late, I've been reading this book, and I do think I'm going to do a longer video on it. Maybe, I'm not too sure yet. That has really helped me out. And then, plus, with seeing my therapist and whatnot, and um, starting cognitive behavioral therapy, which is behavioral therapy is really just based off the idea of you feel the way you think. So you can kind of control the way you think, you can control the way you feel. And that's a theory, a very common theory, I feel like nowadays, where, that is the best way to treat anxiety. It's not with a pill or anything like that, or like a psychoanalyst trying to like figure out why you're having these issues, right? Some of that is helpful. But this book and cognitive behavioral therapy, I feel like is the best way to address anxiety, short term and long term. And I feel like I'm doing like an ad for this book, and I sort of am. I highly recommend this book, When Panic Attacks by David D. Burns. He wrote another book called Feeling Good: The New Mood Therapy, and I haven't read that one. That was I think his first book, maybe his first kind of big seller. And that book, The Feeling Good, that really deals with more depression and whatnot. Something I have suffered from, but not so much as anxiety. And so, I'm having panic attacks, and I saw this book, and I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. And a lot of self care or self help books, whatever, they do kind of get a bad rep. Maybe there's deservedly so. I haven't read too many like self help books or anything like that. I think this book is so great though, because it teaches you different techniques how to deal with your anxiety. And for some people with kind of moderate anxiety, um, and somebody who wants to deal with their anxiety, I think this book, just reading it on its own, is probably going to be good enough for you. Um, but maybe someone with more severe anxiety, this book plus seeing a therapist or a licensed professional is definitely going to be the way to go. And in this book too, it also talks about medications and whatnot, and how a lot of the times there's been plenty of studies that show that the medications are really more just a placebo effect. Like there really is no chemical imbalance in your brain that causes anxiety or depression or anything like that. And for other mental illnesses, a pill is required. Like schizophrenia and manic bipolar disorder. that's where, a prescription drug is really going to kind of help out. But with like, anxiety and depression, it can help out, through the placebo effect. You do feel better. And for some people, that's enough too, right? They take it, maybe they're going through a bit of a rut. They take a, antidepressant, helps them out of that rut. They get off it and then they move on with their life, even if it really didn't have a huge impact, just the placebo effect helped out enough. But for other people like myself, I don't think prescriptions and drugs are the way to go. I do think through this book and whatnot, and through CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, I can really control and um, maintain my mental health. So that's the mental health journey I'm kind of going on right now. It, and I will say it has gotten a lot better. I have implemented some of these techniques in this book, and then working with my therapist on more the behavioral side. That's more the maintaining of anxiety and depression. I do daily meditations, kind of. They're kind of meditations. It's more like a breathing technique that I do daily, which has helped out a lot. And if I do kind of get into that panic mode, I can implement some of those techniques that I've learned, and that seems to help out a bunch. So I do want to encourage my viewers to read this book if you have not. If you are somebody who suffers with anxiety and you think it is a real problem and you don't know where to start trying to get help, I think this is a great place to start. It's not a very dense. Well, it can be dense. It throws a lot at you. Um, but if you read it kind of in bite-sized chunks and take notes and participate in the activities, I think this book will definitely help you, and maybe it will be enough for you to maintain and control your anxiety. Um, so, so yeah, I do probably plan on making some other videos about my journey with mental health and my anxiety, whatever, and panic attacks, because I've only kind of touched the tip of the iceberg with this video. Um, but I will say I'm making great progress with it. I'm feeling better daily. I've been walking daily as well. I think that's really helped. I've been doing like intermittent fasting. I haven't been drinking at all. I haven't drank in months. Even like during the holidays, I didn't drink. I can't remember the last time I drank. I was watching a video on not drinking and the the profound positive effects just not drinking can have on both your physical and mental health. And for me, it almost seems like the pros outweigh the pros of drinking. Don't outweigh the pros of not drinking in my mind now. And that's not to say I won't ever drink again or whatever. I don't know, but right now I really need to buckle down and focus on my mental health. Get that in order first before anything like that. Um, so yeah, I like I said, I will make another video on this. Hopefully, this didn't sound too like rambling. I mean, I guess that's kind of the point of these videos is just to talk off the cuff. And yeah, I would be curious, if for those of you who might want to share your experiences with anxiety and depression and whatnot down in the comment section down below. I encourage that. Obviously, if you're not comfortable doing that, that's totally okay. I think in this video I maybe overshared some things, but I think that's okay as well. I don't. I think that's all right. I think you know, I don't know. I think maybe that's how it's supposed to be for me, is to overshare sometimes and be vulnerable and whatnot. And that's the point of these videos as well, is to be very open with you guys. So this is definitely kind of a longer off the cuff, and yeah, I would like to make another video about anxiety and maybe a video really breaking down more of this book like I did with the Super Communicators book. We'll see though. I might just do another off the cuff and talk about some of the techniques I've used and whatnot. But yeah, I have to wrap up this video, so please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff if you have not already, and we will see you in the next off the cuff.